thank Dato Fu as well as members of the Penang Forum, including our councillor. Our issue is sitting over here, but he has crossed the floor.
I sit in the middle.
I will say, Dr. Manda, Associate Dr. Manda, I don't know you, What have you done to offend her? So, thank you, Dr. Yong, and also, of course, Dr. Liang and Datin, Dr. Kang, and of course, Ms. Rebecca Duncan and Kanan Kumar from MNS. I'm just having this Penang Forum, even though we have received some criticism for removing some trees to be transplanted to make way for a road expansion project. And we were quite surprised we received that statement opposing what we've done. We just wanted to hear the views of as well as, of course, explaining the necessity, not only from an engineering perspective, but also, I think, from the entire approach towards reducing traffic congestion. I really have some sympathy for the views that we should try to reduce cars coming to the city. But until and unless we have alternative roads for people to bypass the city to go to whether it's early drive or what we need. Until that is done, this would not be a viable option because we are ready to have people who may not agree with these views. Some may prefer a cold turkey, harsher approach. But for us, it's quite difficult to take a cold turkey, harsher approach. Especially, I think when you look at the lower income groups, I think we also have to look at those who are the lower income groups. Bear in mind that our public transport system has not been in place yet. But once it's in place, I will definitely agree with the views on expressed by the NGO that we should probably increase parking charges, but not as high as $5 per hour like some suggested. And also even excess charges for those who wish to go into the city. But we need to have this public transport, alternative public transport, and also, of course, alternative routes in place. Hopefully by 2025, when everything is in place, then we can implement these measures as suggested. And for me, I will even go one step further, that we should be closing some of the roads in the city areas and make it fully pedestrian only roads, especially for our beautiful heritage areas. So I think I'll just pause here. You all know Dr. Manda and our famous or infamous Rajan described variously as either the murderer or the mutilator, but all for doing his work. He just actually removed 16 trees, and now he's described as a murderer and mutilator, which of course we feel is very unfair on him. But perhaps I'll just hand over to Paul.
Thank you, my Minister. I keep my, I think you stated earlier in one thing that the Penang Forum in tackling this issue is monodimensional, only about 16 trees. But I would like to say that actually ours is two-dimensional. We're not yet at 3D, we're two-dimensional. First is the issue which is more primary on road widening, and then secondly on the issue of tree. On the road widening thing, I think I just have 5 or 6 points to make. First, we don't believe that simply putting another lane on this sort of stretch will solve the problem. It may alleviate the problem temporarily, okay? But we will come back to square one. And this is simply because a fundamental precept or principle that I learned from actually a transportation economist who came to Penang Institute 6 years ago to give a talk where I attended. It completely revolutionized my thinking. And I hope the engineering department also is receptive to this. That's basically, like creating more supply of roads simply creates a demand for the use of it. And therefore, in any place, doesn't solve the problem.
So you're saying that this is a version of Say's law?
It is
a version of Say's law.
It is. And actually, transportation engineer, I don't know, you're familiar with Bress, the mathematician, Dr. Bress, who 1968 already mathematically showed that, you know, there's a paradox where you do a new road and you widen a new road, people will immediately change their behavior and go for the most, what you call, convenient, and then you will come back to square one. So that is the fundamental thing which completely revolutionized my thinking. Before that, when I was in council, my view was that I'm not an engineer, I don't know anything about traffic, I leave it to the good hands of Mr. Rajan and the Lord to solve this problem. Okay? But after having sat in the council and having learned, I've decided otherwise. That, you know, engineers are good at building roads, but perhaps, you know, not having the bigger picture in mind. And I think so this is the most fundamental CM, because if you can convince us that road widening here, this short stretch, will solve the problem, then I'm with you. Okay? So that's, as you said correctly, the way Say's law. And we have all evidence. Beijing started with one ring road.
Do you support Say's law as an economist?
What?
Do you support Say's law as an economist?
No, no.
So you don't support Say's law as an economist. But how can you say that you support Say's law in terms of road building? There's a contradiction here.
No. In transportation, as I said, it's supported by Beijing.
I know that, but you agree with me it's a version of Say's law, but you support Say's law in economics.
But but I think in certain cases it applies, right?
That's so, for the benefit of the press. What is Say's law? Say's law is economic theorem devised by French economists, where he says simply this: you don't have to go to the academic and arcane economic treatise on this. That supply creates its own demand. So the more you produce, never mind, you will be able to find demand for it. Which is why I asked Dr. Lim just now, does he agree with Say's law? And I know that he doesn't agree with Say's law. Because any decent economist will know there are limits there.
Yes.
It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So when you say that it's a version of Say's law, for saying that you build more roads, you create the own demand and you will all be clocked out. So I think it also applies. That doesn't work. We agree, disagree like that. Okay, there you go.
But I just say why I don't agree on economics, because there's Keynes who say there's aggregate demand. Aggregate demand, you got an effective demand and you got your demand. And if you don't have money to buy, you can do all the supply and you can't have demand. So, but we'll close that conversation.
I still back to travel connection. Well, my point is saying of this is that you say it's a version of Say's law.
In transport economics.
Yes, in transport engineering and in transport usage, you say it's a version of Say's law. And you seem to adopt that, but in economics you don't agree with Say's law.
Okay, but that's okay.
Second, contradiction, right?
Okay, secondly, I think we have been too car-centric. We really, despite the fact that we say we want to move people and not cars, but all our priority is basically on moving cars, making it move faster, easier, and all this stuff. And that's actually 19th, 20th century thinking. Actually, in many cities in Europe, they are making it difficult, not easy for people to use cars. And the more you make it easy, and it's rational, then I will do the same. It's cheaper for me to do it, it's easier for me to do it, I will hop in the car. So, and as long as we don't tackle the demand side, we're never going to solve the supply side will be there. Okay, the problem. So that's I think at the general level, that's why I think just simply building it doesn't help. Now I come to more specific, Jalan Masjid. Alright? Now Jalan Masjid already is a very long road, and some parts are, 4 lanes, that means 2 in each side. Some parts are 6 lanes, correct? And here this short stretch of 1.8 kilometers, you want to make it to 5 lanes, because actually there are 3 lanes there, sometimes 2 lanes on the McDonald's side, and 2 lanes here and 3 lanes there. So my point is, this is a band-aid approach. Okay, you may be able to, as Rajan will tell you, with 2.5 lanes coming from the Convent Road. From Udini and Convent Road, right? Convent, right? Because actually half a lane is basically going to Tiantek. So you only have half a lane to go this. So 2.5 lane, and you say you're constricted to 2 lane. So that's the problem. And therefore, like angioplasty, you want to bring it open and then push it.
Angioplasty save lives.
So then you create this, and then you can have another, you kicking the can down the road. There will be another jam somewhere in Tam side, in Scotland Road side. So there's no end to this, just no end to this. So and then I was noticing when I'm driving south towards the airport, okay, on the McDonald's side is 2 lanes. So now after this, Rajan, you're going to tell me we're going to acquire land on the McDonald's side and make it 3 lanes. And then the convert side, we're going to make it 4 lanes. So there is no end to it, CM. Simply no end. Okay? It does not solve the problem. And our fourth point, and I'll be almost finishing, that, Rajan says unbearable. Okay? But I think the more unbearable part, the choke points, are basically the Convent Green Lane, Batu Lancang Junction, and the Turf Club, Batu Gantung Junction. Because you use it at peak hours, the jam starts from Penang Sports Club right until Green Lane, Convent, right? And that takes about 20 to half an hour to clear. And after that, you're quite okay. So if you want to spend some money, we should put our thinking there rather than this quite bearable. And fourth and fifth point is that you're going to do the Ayatam bypass in 2 years, right? So we have borne this problem for the last 20 years. Why is it we cannot bear for another 2 years? Why are we doing this? We can live with this problem because it's not going to solve it. And finally, I don't think it's a good use of money, council's money. 18 million ringgit for 1.8 kilometer, which means 1 meter is 10,000 ringgit. Okay? It's not solving the problem, it's not justified, and I simply cannot support such a project. Thank you very much, CM. One of the problems we have at the council is that there's not very much coordination with JKR. Okay? Outside in the JKR where I live, that area, they are very happy to cut down a lot of trees, put the concrete pavement where the grass is. And so, under your authority, can you please get the state JKR and whatever other agencies are involved to sit down and do this thing on a coordinated basis? Because otherwise, council is actually hamstrung. I think Dr. Leong is saying that we should set up such a committee to do the master integrated plan for planting with our landscape and JKR and all that.
Any other views before I ask council to respond? Any other views? Okay, Rajan? Dr. Bala, you want to say something?
But actually, we do ask developers to submit plan, to plant trees, and our landscape department will actually determine which tree you can chop off, or which tree you have to retain or to transplant. Right? It'll be dealt with in our landscape department. So we do have we ask developers also to plant new trees.
With this coordination also, may I also maybe say that there ought to be also coordination with PDAPP, especially along the Guillemard Reservoir. Now the winding road along Guillemard Reservoir is very busy because of so much development now in Vale of Ten, Jalan Lembah Permai. And I travel there every day, so I know. A lot of trees along the slope have been cut, sometimes because of high winds and the branches break and all that. But the end result of cutting too many trees along that kind of slope is that it's going to, in the long run, destabilize the slopes, because the trees are the ones that have the roots that hold the soil there. So there has to be some coordination about also I mean, there's a safety issue, but there's also an ultimate safety issue in terms of slope failure. The other thing also is that that road was not meant to carry the kind of heavy traffic that it is now. It has been widened, but every few months you see cracks along the road, and people have, I think JKR has to come in and patch. And sometimes we find ourselves driving behind huge lorries and trucks using which is not meant, because I think that road cannot have that kind of bearing capacity. And I think a simple way, although there's a sign that says no trucks, but they don't. A simple way is to have the kind of a height barrier which you see around different places as well. So if I request that, we should be looking at the main, so that not to reduce the maintenance requirements as well. Thanks.
Yeah, can I just say this? Because this thing has come out to the council, Chief Minister, million times. I'm so sick and tired of this issue.
1 million. Numerous times, million times a bit exaggerated.
Exaggerated, but it is
exaggerated, overly exaggerated.
Overly exaggerated, true, but it is so.
But this is the first time hearing it.
Really?
They said I will check out with PBA.
And let me tell you why they said JKR said they cannot. Because this will be very.
PBA or JKR?
JKR said they cannot.
JKR
JKR
road.
Okay? Because they said the bomba might want to use it. But there's a simple, no, they don't want to put this boom. Okay? But there's a simple solution. You put the boom. Okay? You give the keys to the bomba. If it's necessary, they will do it. I mean, I really cannot. Yesterday, I went through that road. There was one big tree. Okay? I saw it. I was driving, so I couldn't take a picture. They just lop off the whole thing. Lop off the whole thing, So that's dead. Secondly, there was a big bus persiaran there. Why? Bus persiaran. Huge one, 40 or 50 seater passing through. So, Chief Minister, please get the state JKR to cooperate, because they don't want to cooperate.
It's a state road, is it? You will check with the JKR. And also with the other place. Okay. Rajan, all yours.
Just to answer Dr. Lee's queries. Actually, prior to 1986, 30 years ago, Jalan Masjid Negeri had 1.5 lanes on each side of the road. When Penang Bridge was constructed and opened to traffic, it was widened to 4 lanes on each side of the road. So now, after 30 years down the road, we are looking at road expansion, not throughout Masjid Negeri, but at certain parts of Masjid Negeri to relieve traffic congestion. We are sure widening of roads won't solve traffic congestion. You want to solve traffic congestion on Masjid Negeri, you need viaducts, you need flyovers. We are not willing to do that because we are trying to minimize cost and hope to get the relief before the Penang Islanding one comes up. That is in 2023, between 2023 to 2025. In the interim, the Itam bypass will help relieve some traffic congestion along Jalan Masjid Negeri. I think you're painting the picture that we are cutting trees all over Penang to solve traffic problem. I don't think so. That is true. In Pulau Tikus, we resorted to implementing one way without even touching a single tree. And we had been bombarded over and over again by people for implementing one-way street, although now people look at it as an achievement. We also prohibit right turns, do traffic management in small areas, loop system, prohibit parking and waiting to improve traffic flow. So I think Dr. Lee is true. Widening won't solve traffic problem. We need a host of measures to solve traffic problem, including public transport. But you can look at Penang now. Although traffic Penang, we have leapfrogged actually from before 2008, where the buses were actually leased to the drivers. Now you can see a lot of improvement to public transport. In fact, we give rebates to Rapid Penang on rental of premises and give full cooperation to them to run the service well. So we look at various aspects, not only road widening, but why Jalan Masjid Negeri? Why this section of Jalan Masjid Negeri between Aitam and Ujini? This section of Jalan Masjid Negeri accommodates a high volume of traffic. Now, the volume is exceeding the capacity of this road. That's why this widening we are doing. But many other parts in Penang are also choked up. Why Jalan Masjid Negeri? Because you can see during weekends, where there are holiday seasons, a simple congestion on Jalan Masjid Negeri will cause Aitam to jam, Lorong Batu Lancang, Tentik to jam, Scotland Road to jam, everywhere is jammed. That's why we are doing widening on Jalan Masjid Negeri, and this is the last phase. This third lane we are creating on Jalan Masjid Negeri, we have studied and we know it will help us reduce congestion. Of course, to people like Dr. Lim, this is bearable problem. But as an engineer, I tell you, according to the Highway Capacity Manual, Transportation Research Board, USA, the manual which is being used all over the world, a delay of exceeding 80 seconds is level of service F, very bad level of service. But we have many false delay in Jalan Masjid Negeri, not 80 seconds, but 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes half an hour. We cannot afford to get Jalan Masjid Negeri choked because it acts as the outer ring road presently, from the north to the south of the island and vice versa. That's why we are widening this part of Jalan Masjid Negeri. You can see Scotland Road we have not touched. The problem is also the queue is very long. We have not touched Scotland Road yet. But if the problem worsens, of course we need to look at how to solve this problem as and when. But we are not resorting to road widening to actually as only one measure to resolve this problem. No. Since 86, since we widened to 2 lanes on east side of the road, since 86, Penang Bridge has been, there's 6 lanes on the Penang Bridge, additional 2 lanes. There's so many developments, the Light Waterfront, other developments at the north, Glugor, even in Masjid Negeri, the second link, all these contribute to a worsening traffic condition. We cannot fold our arms and keep quiet while the traffic condition worsens. To some people, they say, fine, let the cars jam, I'm not bothered. But we are not looking at one group of people. We are looking at the whole population of Penang. Some people, they don't want congestion. Some people, they say, never mind, 16 trees, go. But we are looking at all parties. Actually, if we wanted to widen to 6 lanes Jalan Masjid Negeri, many more trees will be affected. If we were to build a viaduct, many more trees will fly over, many more trees will be affected. Actually, Dr. Lee knows the original plan Masjid Negeri, we wanted to have an elevated U-turn, which will actually tremendously improve flow along Jalan Masjid Negeri. But we did not resort to that plan because both sides of the center median side, both sides of the Masjid Negeri, the trees will be gone. We opted to localize the widening by creating 3 lanes on certain parts of Jalan Masjid Negeri. Udini Road, I can tell you, we received a lot of people who, feedback saying that it has really improved traffic flow along Jalan Masjid Negeri. And I don't believe that widening one part of Jalan Masjid Negeri will bring you see, I don't simply implement, MBPP does not simply implement projects. We study the problem over and over again, go to the site day and night, weekends to see whether this will actually bring benefit to the people. And I tell you, the bottleneck now at Jalan Masjid Negeri is at this section. And if we clear this section, the traffic will be able, the backlog of traffic from this area to the Udini we can solve, especially during peak seasons. And in this plan also, we have widening of McDonald's site to 3 lanes. It's not that we are going to widen McDonald's site later. No, it is already in the tender. It will be done simultaneously. The same contract, we are widening McDonald's site to 3 lanes. From Free School, you see, all the way 3 lanes, but in front of McDonald's, 2 lanes. it is a cause of a serious congestion until Jalan Utama, Scotland Road to Jalan Utama. We are dealing with it. So I just want to, apart from this, we are also, I mean, as YP Chief Minister has said, we are also looking at the demand management, like increasing parking charges. But to do this, we actually need, we can do it progressively, but actually we need to come up with alternative transport modes. We're also looking at cycling. Dr. Lim is an avid cycler, cycling, bicycle. Cycles offered to our meetings. We have extensively created cycling networks. So I think that's about it. I think your questions I think I've answered.
Okay. Actually, I would agree when you say that just road widening alone is not the only solution, but it is part of the solution. And it is not a long-term solution. I think probably Mawi got the wrong end of the cherry when he said that the situation will revert itself after a couple of years. If that is the only solution, then I would tend to agree with you. But this is part of a long-term solution that encompasses the Transport Master Plan, including the Aita bypass. It's not 2 years, it will take around 4 years because of the some road land acquisition that we have to do, and so it's on the queues. So we want to do it sensitively. But even let's say if it's 4 years, you can say you can wait 4 years, even though some do not agree. But that 4-year wait would of course incur losses, and at the same time, without public transport, Aitam bypass would, at the end of the day, again, have more cars coming in. So we seeing this as part of a holistic solution encompassing LRT, monorail, as well as a sort of a bypass, a bypass ring road structure in order to allow the inner city, especially the Georgetown area, to be able to be a living space without too many vehicles. So you won't have the whole area choke up with traffic. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we are doing this Transport Master Plan so that we can, as I said, impose some of the measures that are recommended, including closing including closing roads for pedestrian malls and pedestrian walks. But that does not mean that when you have a bottleneck, you do not remove it. I think that bottleneck has to be removed. The same reason that in this Federal Road, the Jalan by the Pass Road to go to FIZ, after the first bridge to Bayan Baru, there was a bottleneck created when you went from 3 lanes to 2 lanes and after that to 3 lanes again. So that was a problem that lasted 10 years and the traffic was really bad, very bad. I think it took sometimes more than 1 hour just to get past that. So the whole journey would take probably 2 hours. It's sometimes no different from KL. But once we straighten that out, have 3 lanes, it improved. And even though you say cutting out traffic congestion to 2 hours to 1 hour may not be much, but to those person, or 1.5 hours to 45 minutes may not be much. But to the person who is driving the car, that's a lot of difference. And I would really like to endorse what this I just said, because I use that road very often, and when it constricts from 3 lane to 2 lane, from 3 lane to 2 lane back to 3 lane, I am confident that this will really help a lot. Even if for that 4 years or for that medium term period, it will really help a lot. Just like Udini bypass, I think that was a tremendous improvement. Those who say that the Udini bypass did not have all, I think must be a terrible liar. Terrible liar because he's trying to say something where everybody knows it's not true, that indeed the Udini roundabout traffic elevation project was a transformation for traffic in that area. And up to now, many people are asking, why was this not done 20 years back? They didn't understand. They said, what? It's just so simple that you could do it, but why couldn't it be done 20 years ago? And I remember asking this question to Rajan, why are all these things not done earlier when it's just so straightforward? The reason given was that they just didn't want to come up with money. And I think that is the difference, that money was used not for the public, money was used for, you know what it was used for. So it transformed Udini, but again, you say that unless the whole road is straightened out, you're kicking the can down the road. So that's why we need to straighten it. But then you say that you'll be kicking the can down to another road. That's why we need the public transport. So this is part of a holistic solution. If we just do it per se, without a public transport solution, then I think that your points are valid. Some suggestion for the Convert Green Lane, Batra Check, that one I'll leave it for the engineers to study. Again, it's a question of funding. The need to tackle the demand side, the number of cars that are coming in. Sometimes it's just not only new cars registered, we've got more cars than people in Penang, but also the number of people coming in. You know, Penang is now growing, emerging as a growing destination, not just for investment, but also for tourism. We are one of those few spots in Malaysia where we recorded more tourists in 2014 than 2013. You know, last year Malaysia had a very bad year, the number of tourists fell. But for Penang, we went up. The number of tourists for Penang went up. It didn't go down. Of course, around 5% or so, but still it went up. And that's reflected in the number of cars. So you need to try to take short-term or medium-term solutions before the long-term solution of the public transport comes in. You know, just like the Bukit Road, the Pad Road to Jalan Paya Trubung, that's a medium-term solution. It costs us around 200 to 250 million. The Pad Road to Jalan Paya Trubung to Samun City, Jalan Paya Bukit to Samun City, that is a medium-term solution. But are we just going to wait, pray and hope that the public transport, the LRT happens and not do anything else? That I can't do. So we will continue to take short-term, medium-term and long-term solutions. What I think machinery is a short-term solution. And I think Rajan forgot to mention that when you talk about removing the 16 trees, it's only a 30-year-old tree. It's not a 100-year-old tree. It has some claim. So we hope that can be corrected. It's not 100 years old. So it's very unfair to the government that we are blamed for wrong facts. But you know, somehow they like to twist and distort what is happening. As long as against the state government, anything goes. All the lies and the twist comes out. So it's a 30-year-old tree and it's transplanted. And as Rajan has said, we have a 90% survival rate. A 90% survival rate. And one final point which I want to make about trees, you know, you look at the statistics. I mentioned we have planted 271,000 trees, so as 271,000 new trees compared to 16 trees throughout the state. But never mind, just talk about Jalan Masjid Negeri. Just talk about Scotland Road. From Jalan Masjid Negeri to Scotland Road, you are looking at 580 trees. So 16 of 580 is around 2.7%, 2.76%. Sorry, 2.76%. But if you look at just only Jalan Masjid Negeri Road, you're looking at 427 trees. Correct? Just Jalan Masjid Negeri Road, don't include Scotland Road, just Jalan Masjid Negeri Road, 427 trees. And these 16 trees only comprise 3.75% of the number of trees. I don't think that that will make a discernible difference. It is not even within that normal 10% deviation. So, you know, in stock market terms, material disclosure is required when you are above 5% or 5%. It's not even that. Even in stock market terms, it is not worth even a mention. And bear in mind that this is transplanted, this is replanted. So to government out to the cleaners just because we deal with 3.75% of trees, which is replanted. I think it's because they are unfair. Not only to MBBB, but also to people who are working their butts off to make Penang less congestion free. I mean, whatever your disagreements are, Marco, you agree that Rajan works tremendously hard.
I know.
He works really hard. Sometimes they think that he's actually working for a private sector. Where got middle of the night, all that. No, you don't find dedicated government officers like that. Only you find that in Penang. Not in and Adnan also. It's not fair to these are all professional engineers. Adnan, they are all qualified professional engineers. He serves even on IEM. So these are all professionals and they are proud of their work. They are proud of themselves as engineers. So we hope that credit can be given to them when they do work to alleviate traffic congestion. It is effective. And Houdini has proven it is effective. So this will be effective. But long term, 10 years down the road, we will be back to square one. I agree. But at least during that 10-year period until the LRT comes in, you will have a better traffic flow. And that's where not only the state government will thank them, but your children will also thank you. Your children also thank them. Okay? Any other questions? Final point before we end, I think there was a comment made which I think did not give a true picture that we spent 18 million for a 1.8 kilometer stretch. Yeah. It's not construction cost.
I know.
18 million
acquisition
included, yes. So I think because otherwise people get the impression that we are spending.
No.
So I think you
even in our statement, I put there construction plus acquisition cost.
The bulk of it actually
10 million acquisition.
11 million, I think. Almost, I think more than 11 million is acquisition. That you agree. Yeah. Can you just give the figures, Rajan? How much acquisition, how much? Acquisition is very expensive because land there is very expensive. So we don't get the impression, wow, 18 million for 1.8 kilometers. That means 10 million per kilometer, no, per kilometer. So that would give a very wrong impression that how can it be so expensive? I think that has to be cleared for the press. Because otherwise you ask the press now, they think 18 million to build 1.8 kilometer, correct now? But this one actually includes acquisition cost. So Rajan, please give the figures.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, actually the construction cost for this project is 7.85 billion. And the rest, 11 million, is for acquisition cost.
And then the 7.85 construction is just not road, but also I think that what do you call that?
Drainage, walkway,
and then all the like include the Houdini that what do you call that? The roundabout, that viaduct.
elevated
U-turn. So it is just not just road only. There are also other road accessories that are included. I hope that can be understood clearly, or else you get the impression, wow, 18 million for 1.8 kilometer road. I think that's not fair to the council. All right. Any other questions?